We now turn to the table. I invite you, if you're at home, to grab whatever bread and drink you will use for communion and settle in at the table. Join me in our table liturgy. God is with you. Lift up your hearts. Let us give thanks to God. Letting go. What if letting go simply means letting God in? The parables are a good example of this. Rather than a list of rules or do's and don'ts to reinforce his teachings, Jesus told stories. He wasn't forcing a conclusion, but offering an invitation. In his wisdom, I believe Jesus knew that parables left open the space for Spirit to guide us. Often, with this parable of the sower, I've thought of God as the sower, the seed as God's wisdom or love, and us as the various types of soil. Am I the soil choked with weeds or the good soil? Will God's love take root in me, or will some bright, shiny distraction cause God's wisdom within me to wither and die? That's one way to read it, and that interpretation can be a good and powerful teaching. But how does it change if you let go of that interpretation and think of yourself as the sower, or God as the seed? Or maybe you're the seed and God is the good soil. Like a kaleidoscope, you can turn the story around and around and see what different meanings might fall into place. And when we let go of our certainty of its meaning, Spirit has room to dance around and maybe offer us something new. Meditation is another form of letting go. It's a way of putting our thoughts and ideas on the back burner and opening our hearts to what God may be wanting to say to us. Often the experience I have is of sinking deeper within myself to that something else that isn't me, that light that comes not from me yet is still deep within me. And like the parables, it always isn't clear what the light is saying. But I also find that it's okay to not know. Time and time again, I learned that the knowing isn't as important as the being. Being with the light, being with Spirit, being with love. Richard Rohr says that meditation is a kind of death, dying to our ideas, our egos, our small selves, and in so doing, allowing ourselves to be lifted into something much, much bigger that is both us and not us, being held by holy love. Meditation is really good practice, I find, for the little deaths we experience throughout life, as well as the ultimate big D death we'll all experience eventually. One of my best teachers on letting go is my 89-year-old dad, Charlie. Ever since he had a stroke 4 years ago, he's been in a wheelchair. He has worked so hard since then to regain some measure of control over his body, to speak and swallow whole foods again, to be able to feed himself and write with his left hand rather than his right, to navigate staircases in order to see family and go to AA meetings and church and even get on a plane and attend my nephew's wedding in Colorado. That was before COVID. Still, he's said on many occasions that he never expected to end up in a wheelchair. This is a guy who could run marathons and ride 100 miles on a bike in a day. He completed 2 Ironman triathlons and dozens of smaller ones. He was a banker and a lawyer who raced his Porsche 911 on weekends for fun. He raised 5 kids and had 13 grandkids and 6 great-grandchildren and traveled the world with my mom. He is someone who has lived life to the fullest. So being in a wheelchair has been the ultimate test of letting go. It's challenged almost everything he thought he knew about himself. But as a recovering alcoholic, he also learned a long time ago what it means to let go and let God, to practice dying to an old way of life and make way for a new one. There's no question that all of the things he did in his younger years of pushing himself physically and overcoming his own mental obstacles of what he thought he was capable of really helped him in his rehabilitation after his stroke. But the trophies and the t-shirts and medals are nothing compared to the prayer and meditation practice he had developed. The ability to let go and let God, to allow others literally to lift him up, to let us love him despite all that he had lost. Maybe in the end, that's the gift in letting go. It means we can let God in. We can ask God's help. We can rest in a love we have come to know and trust, not by understanding it, but by simply being with it. Are you the sower, the seed, or the soil? I invite you to listen. Let go. Lean into the Spirit and let her love you into a new understanding. Amen. We give thanks for these holy mysteries. You have given yourself to us, God,